Hi there, bienvenidos. My name is MadHatterMads. Today we are going to be learning how to make our own default for The Sims 2. So this is not a default that is on the database. This is not one that is missing ages or certain things. This is just a completely new default that we are going to make from scratch. So we're going to be walking through that today. Creating a default can be quite tedious, but if you know how to do it, start to get into the habit, it becomes a lot easier. I personally find visual representations help, so hopefully this video will help you out. I currently am wanting to make a default for the neutral witch's hat. So I'm going to be going into SimPE to do that, right? So first, open up just a blank document, make sure it has nothing in it. Then go to Property Set Search. Type in witch or whatever the name of the hair you're looking for is. Then you hit Start. It's going to take a minute and then we're going to get all the results to have the word witch in it. We're going to find the AF hair witch neutral hair. So that comes in adult, elder, and teen. Though the elder is going to be labeled as adult, it's just going to have gray at the end of it. So we are going to need to grab all of the neutral ones, including the clones. Now the witch hairs are a lot more extensive than most of the other default hairs that you would typically make. So I feel like this one is a good example because it can show many. It shows a more complicated default that sometimes you might have to do. Not always, but sometimes you will encounter one that's a bit more tricky. So I think showing a trickier one as a demonstration could help if that's something you encounter in the future. So anyway, we're going to click on this. Now I'm going to hit instance because not only do we need, what is this called? Not only do we need the property set, we also need the 3D referencing file, right? It is not going to work if we don't get both. So we need to select them both, right? And then we need to extract them. Now, I have a file on my desktop called 3D and property files where I just add all of this stuff in, okay? So I extract them there, and now they're on my desktop in that file, safe, right? Now, I personally recommend making a folder or something like this because there can be a lot of information they have to get, and so it's good to have a place to put it so you don't get mixed up, so it doesn't get lost, so you don't have to do it all over again. Because like I said, creating a default from scratch can be quite tedious. So I recommend just simplifying it as much as possible so you don't get confused and you make sure you have everything. Because even with being organized, it can still be a confusing process. So I find it's easier to just do these other things to make my life a bit easier. So a thing to note about the witch hair is that the clone is the one that is linked to CAF. So if you only did the one that did not have the clone marking, it would not show up properly. I don't know why this is, why that's put in the game. I just know that that is how it is coded in the CPF editor in the plugin view. So it's always good to double check that stuff because I find most of the time it's not an issue with the clone. You typically don't need to add it in. But there are some hairs that have problems with that, like this, for example. So I think it's always good to just double check, really be aware of what hair you are defaulting and downloading so you don't get confused at why it's not working. Now we need to do, so we just got the black hair, we're going to get the blonde hair that's neutral. Now remember, we are going to get the property set and the 3D referencing file. We're going to extract it. We're going to put it in our 3D and property files folder. Click adult and OK. And it's safe right there. Now we need to also get the clone. So we're going to do the same thing. Select the property set, 3D file, extract, desktop, 3D and property files, adult, and hit OK. And you just go through and do this for all of them. Now we're going to go to gray neutral. For whatever reason, there's 3. Again, no idea why. I just know that that's the way it is. Doesn't hurt. Just add it in to the file and hit OK. Now we're going to do the other neutral one. And again, always double check your instances. Make sure that you're getting the correct 3D file so you do not have to do it all over again because that is certainly something I've done before. I don't separate the adult and the elder just because it's still labeled the same way. So, and with the 3D and property files, it's not as big of a deal. They can all be merged together and really not pose a significant issue. I really only separate by age, and again, because the elder hair is linked with the adult hair, it doesn't really cause a problem. Now, once again, you probably don't need to get the clone for every single hairstyle that you do. You're probably safe. Some of them, though, aren't that way. But usually, if it's a clone, you usually don't need to update it from what I've seen. If I am wrong, I'll update you in the future, but from my experience and the stuff I've seen, it doesn't need to typically be updated if it is not the main file being accessed by CAS. And again, if I'm wrong about that, I apologize and I'll update you about it later. But from what I've seen in my gameplay, and for most defaults actually that I've downloaded on the database, they typically don't jump through all those hoops unless it is absolutely necessary. So I'm assuming typically it's fine. So we've gone through all the adult hairs. Now we need to skip and we need to find the teen. Now this is something that's important when you're making a default. You want to make sure you find all the ages that are linked to the hair. Otherwise it will not show up properly. So let's say that we stopped right here. I only got the adult ages for the witch hair, right? I made it, and then I added my missing ages, kind of like how I showed you in one of my previous videos, right? Added the missing ages, I uploaded it, boom. It will not show up right in the body shop or CAS because there is another file that is pre-existing for that hair in SimPE, right? So that means it is in your files, it is not being replaced. There's just something else that's there that's just kind of messing with it. So you always need to make sure you find all the ages that are linked to this hairstyle, right? So a good way of doing that is checking the family string. A really good example of this actually is the badger hairs. For the toddlers, I've had the hardest time finding hair that I feel like looks really good for them. So I've created a lot of defaults for those hairs myself. Usually have no problems. With the boy hairs, I started encountering some issues. I could not figure out why on earth they would not link with the older ages. I realized shortly thereafter by checking the family strings that there were other hair in all the other ages that were linked to the badger, but they were not labeled as it. I believe they were labeled as like the adult male center spike hair, but it was just like a clone version, right? So it wasn't showing up in my body shop or in my game because they were already existing. It wasn't like they were void, they were still there. And so when I created those missing ages default, it did not show up properly. So I feel like that's a good example. So family is usually a really good indicator of finding other age hairs. Usually, again, it's not as big of an issue. The badger hair was just an example that I found. A rare example. I really haven't encountered this issue with a lot of hair. But, you know, sometimes that happens. Usually you don't have to worry about finding the family and find the problem. This is only if you've created the default and it's not popping up in CS and you've made sure that you've added all the meshes, that you've changed everything you need to in the plugin view. This is if for some reason it's not showing up and you know you've done everything right. Type in the family number up here and you search it and you'll be able to find any other hair that have that same family number. So again, if all else fails, you type in the family string and here you go. It'll pull up all the hair that are linked. Okay, so we are going to be starting with the teen female hair, okay? Now, for the teen 3D and property set files, I do separate them in my 3D and ID folder, right? So you don't need to separate them by color, just by age. And I'll explain why in a minute. But anyway, we're just going to go in. So we got the teen neutral hair for the color black, 3D property files. Now hit teen. Stick that sucker right there. Now let's get the clone one. Let's see, 9C. Remember, always check the instance to make sure you're getting the right 3D and property file, because it's really annoying when you get that mixed up. Again, speaking from experience. Okay, I'll go desktop, 3D, add it to teen. There we go. Get the neutral. Extract that sucker, 3D, teen. There you go. Let's see, brown, neutral. Extract, desktop, 3D, teen. There we go. And that is all of them. So you can close out of this. I'm just going to minimize it. And then you're going to pull up a new, fresh version of SimPE. So this has nothing in it. You're going to hit this little baby square rectangle thing up there that's creating a package. Now you can add stuff to it. So I, for right now, am going to add in my 3D and property files, okay? 3D property, we're going to add an adult. Now, I'm only going to add adult at this time. We'll add teen later. And again, I'll explain why in just a second. So just add in adult. So this is all the 3D reference files. And these are all the property sets, okay? Now this is where you need to save. Hit save as. Save it on your desktop. That's where I usually do it. If you have a different place, you know, go for it. So default, female, witch, neutral. And then I'm putting my name because it is my creation. What we're going to do now is we need to click on each 3D reference file. And we need to delete all the information in it. So it has the resource node, the shape, and material definition. So the material definition is linked to the TXMT files. Now the TXMT files is the information explaining what the hair is supposed to look like. The resource node and shape are the mesh. So currently this is linked to the default hair, the Max's hair that's already in the system. So we cannot upload it like this. So we need to go through and delete everything out of there. So we need to delete all the material definition. We need to delete the shape and the resource node. So it is empty. We hit commit, and then we need to do it with the next one. We have to do this so that it'll show up properly in CAS and in the body shop. If we don't do this, it will not show up properly. It'll most likely either show up as the Max's hair that is already there, or it'll show some errors, like the hair won't pop up, it'll be kind of white and have numbers on it, just other or it'll look kind of odd, like mismatched almost. So it's really important that you that you delete all of this from there. And again, it can be quite time consuming, but it's a necessary evil in making the defaults. We deleted all the information inside the 3D reference file, okay? Now, we're going to leave this alone for now, but we will have to mess with it later. For now, what we are going to do is we are going to add in the mesh, okay? So we're going to go in. So typically, you should also extract the mesh from the hair you picked out. So the hair that I'm doing for the witch it's not this one, but this is like the basic look of the hair I'm doing. Now, again, like I said, if the default is available, you should just take it. I'm making my life harder than it needs to be because I wanted to add some fun colors on the tips because they're witches, and I thought that'd be kind of fun. So like all my witches are going to have this hair, but the evil ones are going to have green, the good ones are going to have blue, and the neutral are going to have these yellow tips again. So again, anyway, this is the basic look and shape of the hair that I'm going to be using. So I did not use this default. I went into the person who originally created it, made sure that they were okay with me recoloring and using their meshes and stuff. And then I selected this for that project. Again, if you're going to distribute it or show it online, it's really good to make sure that the creator is okay with that because, like I said, it's extremely difficult to do. Like, it's extremely difficult to make a default. I can't even imagine creating a hair, just period, out of like Milkshape or whatever the files that they use. That's so difficult. So always make sure that the person is okay with it if you're going to be distributing it out here. Now we're going to go in and add the mesh. So we're going to go to the adult size. So we need, well, We actually don't at this current juncture need the geometric node or the data container. We really only at this juncture need the resource node and the shape. We will eventually need to add the other two, but where we're at right now, we only need this. Hit your 3D referencing file and hit package, okay? This is just going to show all the information that is already in this SimPE file that you were creating, okay? Scroll down, find resource node and shape, and then hit commit. And now that is successfully added into that individual 3D reference file. Now, usually if you have two screens, I like to keep this sucker on my other screen so I don't have to open and close it, because you can just keep this open and go through all of them to add in the resource node and shape. And rather than just constantly have to click it to add it in. So if you happen to have dual monitors, take advantage of that. And anyway, it is very important that you add this in the order that I've listed. So it is always resource node and then shape. For whatever reason, if you put it in the wrong order, it will not show up properly. Can't tell you why. I just know that is the case. So always, always, always be careful in what order you are putting things. So I'm going to go through all your 3D reference files. And you're going to add that in. Now, the reason I have not added the teen files in is because they have a different resource node and shape. And you do not want to get those mixed up, because if you do, it will show up incorrectly on your body shop and in your CAS. So I go through it very, very slow to make sure that I have absolutely gotten it in the right location, because it is so annoying when you realize you put the wrong mesh information in the file, because you have to go through, find which one it was, delete it, re-upload it, make sure you got it in right. So I like to do it one at a time to make sure that you do not get mixed up, because it can be so annoying. Anyway, we have that added in, we can save it, we can now delete it for now from this package file that we are creating. Now what we need to do is add in the TXMT files. So this is the basic information, again, for the hair, for the look, so it shows up properly. In my TXMT folder, I have it separated by color. This is because each TXMT file is unique and has a different number and a different coding. So if you link it to the wrong hair, it will not show up properly. So this, in my opinion, is one of the most tedious parts of it. I know I've been saying the whole thing is tedious, but yeah, it's just the way it is. Okay, so you're going to open up that sucker. I do this one at a time. I do not add all of them in because I tend to get mixed up. And it's, I don't know why, it's just really difficult for me to remember this number and this number, because you would need to know both if you added them all in. It's easier just to remember how to remember the one set. So I go one at a time. So this is for the black hair. This is the textures for it. Okay, there are two different TXMT files. There is a hair file and a hair alpha 5 file. Now, as it was with the resource node and shape, these also need to be added into your 3D ID referencing file in a very specific order. So hair, always first. Then the alpha files, okay? Hit instance. Find the correct 3D reference file. So here, let's see, red, brown, gray, okay, black. So black neutral clone. So we're going to go in here. I'm going to hit package. Now we need to find our material definition, okay? So that's these two. Now remember, CF was hair. So we add that one first. Then we add 92, which is alpha. Now hit commit. Now, if you get it mixed up and you order it wrong, you can hit up or down to change the order to make sure you have it correctly, and it'll change it in here. So if that does happen, you don't need to go delete everything again. Just rearrange stuff by the up or down buttons. And again, always hit commit. Now, since we have 2 black hair, we need to find the other one again. CF first, then 9.2. We hit commit. Save. Now I go in and I delete these so I do not get mixed up. We're going to go back. I'm going to go into the TXMT file. Now we're going to hit blonde. We're going to do the same thing. Okay, so these are the blonde material definitions. Okay, you'll notice it has the same instances. Okay, but it is linked differently. Either, I don't exactly remember, it's either in the group or in this other instance over here. But anyway, it is unique to this specific hair, and this will be labeled accordingly over here by the name. This name will typically match the file that you upload that has the image in it. We're going to go in, we need to find blonde, so red, brown, gray, black, blonde. Okay, CF, 9.2, commit. We're going to find the other blonde. Gray, red, black, blonde. Okay. We're going to find CF. This is the hair file. And then add in 9.2, which is the alpha file. Save. And then delete it. And then go in and add the next hair in. Something to note. If you'll notice, when I was doing the mesh, when I was adding the resource node and the shape, I did not get a separate one for the elder. That is because elder hair typically is linked with the adult ones. You don't usually need to use a different mesh in those cases. Again, that's not like always the case, but I'd say typically the rule, the adult hair mesh is safe to use with the elder one. Again, that is not the case with teens. For whatever reason, the teen, their hair, I think it's slightly smaller, to match with the sim character in height or something. So their mesh is different. This is really only applicable for YA, adult, and elder hair. They're all the same. But anyway, to continue, we have the brown hair now. So brown neutral clone. Okay, I'm going to go in. CF, 9.2. Commit that sucker. Blah, 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 blah. Brown. CF, 9.2, commit, remember to save, delete it, then you go to the next one. So this one is a little bit different. So these material definitions are linked as elder hair, so their instance files are slightly different. Again, this does not pose a problem with the mesh, or it should not pose a problem with the images or the color showing up correctly. This TXMT file is just labeled slightly differently, and therefore the instance is slightly different. In this case, we need to look for B0 is hair and 7.2 is the alpha. So we're going to go in, find the gray, we're going to B0, 7.2. Awesome. So you need to go in, B0, 7.2, solid, B0, 7.2. Okay? Now, once again, hit save, delete the texture, and now we're going in with the last adult one, which is red. Remember, CF is hair, 9.2 is alpha. So we're going to go into 3D reference, CF, 9.2, commit that, and then we need to find the other red. Here you are, CF, 9.2, ta-da. All right. That is now uploaded correctly. At this point, you would now go in and add in the teen files. You gotta make sure, obviously, the material definitions are gone. You're gonna go in, make sure everything's saved. If you were worried at this point, you can always make a copy of your file in case you mess up. So you can make a copy, put it on your desktop or some folder or whatever. Just in case if you do mess up and you can't figure out where, you can go back and you don't have to start from scratch. So you're welcome to do that at this point. So now we can add in all the teen files. So go to desktop, 3D property file, and then we're going to go to teen. We're going to add all these. Now the property set and the 3D files are in for all of the ages that we had available to us. Now we have to go in again and basically do the same thing over. We need to clear out the 3D ID referencing file, so we need to delete everything in it. Then we're going to add in the mesh, and then we will add in the material definitions again. And remember, we'll do this all separately so we do not get mixed up. At this point in the creation process, it is good to keep it on instance like this. So you hit this instance button so that you know which property set and which 3D file go together. Because again, the 3D reference file will match the property set that it is linked to. If you look at instance, we know that this 3D reference file is linked to teen female hair hat witch blonde neutral clone because the instance number over here is the same. So keep it like this. This will help you make sure that you are editing the correct items. Now we're going to go in. We're going to add the mesh. So remember, we are looking for the mesh for the teen. And remember, we only, at this point, really need resource node and shape. We're going to add those in, save it. Once again, we're going to find the correct 3D reference files and add in the resource node and shape. Now remember, once again, we deleted the adult mesh, so we do not have any fear we're putting in the wrong thing. Okay, we save all that. Now we're going to delete the resource node and shape, just so we don't get mixed up. Now we're going to add in the teen material definition. So we can see at the bottom we have a min. Once again, because it is linked to a different age set, the number in the instance high is going to be different. So we're not going to be looking for the CF92 or whatever it was. In this case, it looks like 49 is the hair and E4 is the alpha. So when we were going in, remember 49 goes first, then E4. And again, remember, the order is very, very important. It will not show up correctly in your game if you do not put it in that way. So here's the teen black neutral clone. So we are going to add this in. So remember, 49 first, then E4. Okay? Commit. Now we're going to find the second one. Where is it? Okay, here we go. Open up package. Where'd it go? Here we go. 49, then E4. Now we're going to hit save, and we're going to delete these two, just like we did with the adult ones. We're going to go back in. We're going to go to blonde now. We're going to add in those material definitions, and then we're going to add that in. And we're going to do this with every other additional hair color until we have all the material definition in the 3D files. Now once you've gone through, you've added in all your material definitions, you've added in all the mesh and all that information, and you've made sure everything's separated and good and beautiful and clean, you are now going to add everything in because everything is correctly placed, everything is correctly labeled. You are free to add that sucker in. So we're going to find in our mesh first. We're going to add in the adult one. So we're going to add in now all of it. So we can add in the node, the data, the geometric node, the geometric node, the data, the resource node, and the shape. We're going to add all of that in. So we're going to add all that information in because, again, we need it for it to properly show up in CAS and in the body shop. We just didn't need it at the current moment when we're editing the 3D files because for whatever reason we don't need to add in the geometric node and the data container in it. It just needs to be in the file. Okay, now we're going to add in all of the material definition. And again, we don't need to worry now about it getting mixed up, with it getting confused with the files or whatever, because we manually added them in everywhere. We should be fine to just have them in the package. If you're concerned, if you're worried you mislabeled something, always create a copy of your product of the package before you proceed, just in case. I'm going to double check something because I feel like I may have added something, double something already. Like I said, teen, adult, teen. Yep, see, I was nearly about to add double of the blonde. Again, guys, like I said, it's just so easy to do it. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm just a little scatterbrained, but for me, it is as easy as pie, you know, just to get going, and then you realize you've added 400 extra things you didn't need. So now we're going to go in, and we are going to add in the textures, okay? So we're going to add in black. So this is the texture image. So let me just show you what that looks like, okay? So this is linked to the material definition. So add in all those to make sure you get the blonde one. Look, ta-da! And then you do red, brown, gray, any other color I may have missed. But you add them all in, and then you are nearly done. We have one more thing we need to do, okay? Well, one more kind of set of things, but it has all to do with the property set. We have to change information on the property set so again it properly displays in the body shop and in CAS. So again, you probably don't really need to mess with the version or the product. Probably don't need to mess with the age. Again, it's the default, so you don't really need to change around a whole ton with this stuff. We are going to need to change the flags. We're going to need to change the category. And then we're going to need to change the number overrides and the override shape, subset, and resource key index. I believe that's what that stands for. Flags are something that are very important in labeling things. Now, a lot of this information I figured out thanks to a Hat Play Sims person, right? They have this really amazing post that they made that explains genetics, how to change around genetics, hair color, eye color, how to deal with certain flags, things with clothing and label. There's some really great information on this post. So again, this was not me and my genius figuring this out. This is all them. But so flags are basically, it tells SimPE and it tells CAS and the body shop what, like who can wear this, where it can be accessible and not. So usually when you are labeling or flagging something, you want it all zeros. And that means it's townie friendly. It can show up on anybody, not just your Sims randomly that you create. Anybody in town, just walking by, whatever, everybody can have it. And this also means that it will show up in CAS. Adding a 1 to it means that it is hidden in CAS, right? So it can still show up, it's still in your game, but you cannot find it using that tool, using just CAS alone. You need to type in a special cheat code in the game itself to be able to see this and have it be visible. If you want something that is townie disabled, you don't want this showing up on just anybody, you label it as 8. Now, this means that it's still visible in Body Shop, and you can select your Sims to have it, but it's not going to appear on random NPCs or random townies. Okay, change it to 9 if you don't want it to show up in CAS or the Body Shop. 2 for hat means that, again, available for everybody, is visible in Body Shop. If you want it to be townie disabled, it's labeled A, and I believe that it is labeled B if you want it hidden in CAS. If you see here, look at this. This is 2B. So this is a hat that is hidden in CAS. Now remember, this is not the clone. If you look at the clone, this is just A, okay? Now A, this means it is disabled for townies, okay? Now the hair that I'm using does not have a hat, so I need to change the letter into a number that correlates, but still matches the specifications of this. But anyway, this is how I know that this is the primary hair, because it is not hidden in CAS. You can still select it and use it for the characters, okay? And it will pop up on people. So we don't want this showing up on random townies. So we are going to want to change this to an 8. Now, for this one, this is the hat, but it is hidden in CAS, okay? We want to change that to a 9. So again, this means that this is accessible to, like, so when your person needs to transform into the witch or whatever, this is the hair that I believe they'll be using. Now again, it is usually not this confusing, but again, like I said, I wanted to show you an example of a more complex hair when creating defaults, just so if you happen to encounter one when you are creating your own defaults, you don't have to worry about looking at a basic one and having a very specific problem. You have an example that is a bit more difficult or in-depth or intense, in my opinion. Because again, like I said, you do not normally have this issue when you're doing other hair. Usually it doesn't need to be hidden. Usually I always have them available for everybody, but the witches, because it is so specific, it is tied to the creature, we do not want it available to everybody all the time, anytime. So it has a lot of these specific changes that we need to add in to make it work properly, and we need to match it as closely as possible. Now we need to go in and we need to change the category. There are all these categories you can label for clothing and hair. It means like what it can be used in these certain circumstances. So for example, this hairstyle is only for some reason allowed salon maternity. 20, it seems like a formal, and a 7 is casual. So 127, I believe, is allowed in maternity, formal, and casual, but not for anything else. I don't see the point of that. I like to use it for everything. So I change it to 137F. I don't see why you wouldn't want it for everything, you know? I mean, plenty of people wear their hair up when they swim, when they sleep, all that stuff. So I figure just leave it be, right? Well, I mean, not leave it be. Leave it for everything. Let us all have it all the time. Plus, I kind of hate it when people randomly change their hair when I have no control over it. Like, if I'm picking out, like, a formal outfit, and I'm like, ooh, I want them to be extra fancy today. That's fine. But, like, if I didn't really care, and then all of a sudden it changes, it kind of bothers me. Like, I think I was playing a playthrough once with a pre-made family that all of a sudden got updated with the some of my defaults. And I didn't realize that one of the hairs that the character was linked to, they weren't allowed to wear it, like for sleeping, and it bothered me. So I've had to go in and change a few things, and that was a default that I downloaded because, like I said, not everybody feels the same way, you know. So I mean, that's just something to be aware of. Okay, so we changed all that. Okay, now we're gonna go in again. It's going to get a bit more tricky right here. This can appear really daunting, but it actually can be quite simple, okay? As long as you just kind of follow a kind of a basic, it just follows a basic pattern, what we need to change right here. And if you follow that pattern, you will succeed. So don't be too scared about this, because when I first saw this, I was very, very intimidated. But you need to change the override shape, the subset, and the resource key index, okay? And you'll need to change the number of overrides. So there's really only 2 of the material definitions that we need. Now you can go in here to double check. This is the GMDC. Basically anything that is selected in here and is visible, you need to add. So if you click preview, it should show up kind of the basic idea. I don't understand what clicked and unclicked means, but I know if you click it in here, it'll show you everything. So like if I was to click all this, see, it would show exactly what it looks like. We're going to revert that though, because I don't really know what that changes. But we know basically that we need hair and hair alpha 5. So we know that those are 2 separate number overrides. If there was a hair alpha 3 or something else, that would change the number. Remember, if it's included in that GMDC, if it's included in that mesh, you need it to be added in. Now let's say in the material definition you'll notice there was a hair alpha 3, a hair, and a hair alpha 5. But there was not a hair alpha 3 in here. You would not need to include the hair alpha 3 material definitions because they were not included or needed in the mesh. However, if it is visible in here, if it was hair alpha 5, and hair alpha 3, you would still need that in. You only need the material definitions that are present in the GMDC. So if there's any extras, you do not need to add them into your package file. But if there are additional ones, you absolutely do need them. Anyway, we know that that number definition is 2. Now again, if you look back on the GMDC, there were 3 different alpha 5s. Since they are all alpha 5, it is still compiled into one thing. So it is just 2 number overrides. So we're going to change that to 2 for everything. Okay, now we're going to look at the shape, the subset, resourcing. So since there's only 2, not 4 like there was originally, we can get rid of these additional overrides. Okay, so we do not need the 3rd one, and we do not need the 2nd one. So we have override 0 and override 1. Those are the 2 number overrides. So we're going to go into override 0 shape. Okay, always leave this 0. Don't mess with it. Next one, override 0 subset. Okay, this needs to be the material definition. So you need to do the one that is primary first. Okay, so that would be hair. That is the first one in the 3D referencing file. Therefore, it is the first override subset. And then the override resource key is 2. So for the override 0 resource key index, for whatever reason, it starts at number 2. And then it just goes up 1 from there. For example, override 1 will be 3, override 2 would be 4. So with override, if you were to create a new one, you always need to add the additional number. So override 1 shape 0, override 1 subset, we're going to change that to alpha 5. You need to make sure that it matches the spelling found in the GMDC. Otherwise, once again, it will not show up correctly in your game. And then override to 3. Now this is officially done. This will show up 100% perfect. We have not missed anything. It is beautiful. It is happy. It is lovely. It'll make your heart sing. Okay. So now you need to do that with every other additional one. Now, something to note, the meshes for the different hair and the different ages can vary. Usually where it changes, where the mesh will sometimes be labeled slightly different, the child and toddler ages. So usually you just have to be aware of those ones. But again, that's not the issue in our case. It's the same on both. So the teen, it's hair and hair alpha 5, and in the adult, it's the exact same. So you don't have to worry about that. So to go through it again, we're going to change the number override to 2 because there's only hair and hair alpha 5. We're going to delete these additional ones. Okay. Oh, and if you ever have a hair that has more than what was originally in the property set for the default, just hit add. Easy as pie. You just have to update it from there. You need to change the number of this shape subset resource so you know that so that the application knows that you're adding additional, and then just kind of go from there. Follow the patterns, like see how this goes from 0, 1, and then 2, and then 2, 3, 4. Just follow that basic pattern if you're adding any additional links to the material definition, and you should be solid. But again, that is not the case for us. So we are going to delete those. We only need 0 and 1. So remember, 2 number overrides. Okay, keep this 0. We are going to change this to hair. Okay, keep this as 2 because it is already done for us and it's beautiful and lovely. Now we need to change this to hair alpha 5. And remember to always match it to the GMDC. Okay, number resource 3. Solid. It is perfect and it is done. Now we just have to go through and do that with every additional one. All right, once you have gone through and changed all that, fixed all the overrides and everything, you are solid. You have officially created your first default. So congratulations to you. You have accomplished something that is quite difficult in my opinion. We are going to check and see if it properly showed up in the body shop. So we're going to add it into our downloads folder in the section. Again, always remember to do this. I can't tell you how many times I went to check in it in Buddy Shop and I was confused why it didn't show up, and I realized I just didn't put it in my downloads. So we're going to open up Body Shop right now and we're going to see if it worked. And again, I have not added in the missing ages, so I did not add child or toddler in yet. Making witch hair for those ages is definitely something I'm going to do. I'm just not going to put it in this tutorial right now. Midge the Tree is a simmer for The Sims 2 and has added the witch state for children and toddlers. She has some awesome mythological stuff, and I really, really enjoy it. And she seems to be quite the modder. She's fixed some things with like Inteen and stuff, like crazy, really difficult stuff. So you definitely should check her out. Let us pull this up and see if it is properly going to display it. And there it is in all its glory. All right, so it's showing up for Elder. There. And why is it not showing up for Teen? Okay. See, guys, this is why you always double check. I remembered, because the witch one, it's so, I don't know why they made it the way they did. But now one additional thing that we are going to need to do, now this is only because of how the witch and their families are bent and everything, but we are going to need to change one family set. Now normally this should not be a problem because you're pulling it from SimPE. It should already be correctly linked to everything. However, I noticed that the teen hair is not properly linked to the adult hair. Again, I don't know why the family number is not matching, but I do know that it needs to be in order for it to be linked. This is something that I discovered when I was creating the other defaults. So again, because we know that the clone one is the dominant one, we need to go to the teen clone ones, and we need to change the family to match that one. Now again, I don't know why it is different, so if someone else knows why, please feel free to educate us in the comments, and if it is a critical reason why it's different, please let me know. But from what I've seen, and I've double checked this with other defaults for the witch's hair, it seems like they all change it to match the clone hair. So this seems to be a reoccurring thing that they have to do. Now we do not need to change the other ones. We only need to change the clones, because that is the one that needs to match. That is the dominant one. So we are going to open up Body Shop, and we are going to see if we have correctly made this project. We're going to check the female hair to find La Bruja. Here she is, and the teen is properly linked, so she will age into this hair if she is a witch as she grows. Obviously, when you're doing this, always check the other colors, because again, sometimes you may have missed something. You may have forgotten to add a mesh. You may have forgotten to change one of the overrides in the plugin view. But it looks like this is not a problem we've had. So congratulations, we have together created a default. You should definitely be proud of yourself. And again, if you have any other questions, if you have any comments or notes, please leave them down below. Like I said, I am not the greatest expert in the world. A lot of this stuff was self-taught. Again, I'm not going to say I'm perfect, but this is what I have picked up and learned. So I hope it's beneficial to you. And if you have any information for me, I'm obviously happy to learn more. I hope that this helped you out. I hope you have a fantastic day. Be sure to be kind to yourself and to be kind to others. Take care. Bye-bye.